Well, let's shift abroad for a moment now, and global charity group Oxfam has called on policymakers at the World Economic Forum to increase taxes on the world's wealthiest by 0.5% over the next decade. The organization says appropriately taxing the rich will help reduce wealth inequality. My colleague Devan Murugan in Davos with the head of the Oxfam delegation this evening. Devan, a very good evening to you, and I suppose, you know, it's a call. I'm having a bit of deja vu. I think I've heard Oxfam make this call before. And I suppose by making this call on this platform, they're hoping that the right people will hear it.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Yveka. Good evening. I mean, Oxfam has again and again, year after year, on the eve of this, what is known as an elite gathering by many people, releases the state of inequality in the globe, and very often each year the description and the illustration of that global inequality takes a different form, different stats. For example, one of the stats in the latest report says that 22 of the richest men globally have more wealth than the entire female population in Africa. And the list goes on as to how you want to describe it. South Africa, for example, case in point, we have got the highest inequality in the world, if not around that region. But why is this happening, and why is Oxfam again and again choosing the World Economic Forum to illustrate the point, does anything move? Well, I have the head of the Oxfam delegation here in Davos. He's the head of Oxfam India as well, Amitabh Bahar. Amitabh, thanks very much indeed. Let me put that question to you. Year after year, you illustrate the inequality quite differently with different measures. Does anything come out of it?
I think a lot of good comes out of it. Yeah. As in, the situation is, I would say, heartbreaking, tragic, and we need to all wake up. But when we come and release our report here, it does influence the narrative. And if you see in the last few years, inequality has become a central question in several spheres of power. So I do think that we need to continue doing this, continue speaking truth through power. That's the billionaires here. And hopefully if we are able to also connect with the narrative of anger that we see around the world. Look at least 30 countries in the world, in the world where people are on the streets protesting. And they're protesting against inequality. They're asking the question, do we really need billionaires?
So let me ask you this, because at this gathering, which is often considered an elite one, luxurious settings where billionaires have little discussions about how they will take their businesses forward and investments come in, you're speaking to a crowd that would say, we are not halving our tax or dropping it by 0.5%. How do you have that conversation with people in these circles here, especially the business guys?
Sure. As I said, speaking truth to power is very, very important. And we come with hard data. And this data is not just coming from an Oxfam report. We are backed by reports from whether it's the World Bank itself. Look at the IMF. Now, IMF is talking of actually increasing the taxes. So there is serious research that's happening, building evidence to be able to speak to these billionaires. Let me also say that yes, the concern is valid. The billionaires at the moment is probably they're not listening to this message adequately. And that's why I would say that it is really working with those people's movement, the citizens' action that's happening around the world, which is telling the billionaires this completely tilted, rigged economic system that it is unacceptable. These levels of inequality are morally unacceptable.
So we've got a severe case of inequality back in South Africa, and there were attempts, and there still are, perhaps many might say, valid raise taxes. We're having a problem with our fiscal area in our economy, and you get a pushback, not just from the elite, massive people on top that are rich, but moving taxes higher is not as easy as one would think. You've got a population there in itself, don't you?
I think we need to get it in the right perspective.
Yeah.
Somebody like Warren Buffett actually said famously that this is an unjust system where I pay less taxes than my secretary. So just imagine Warren Buffett paying less than the average citizen. And that's happening across. There's also data which is telling us that if you look at, say, the wealth tax itself, in whatever form, whether it's the wealth tax, estate duties, inheritance tax, that's amounting to only 4% of the global tax revenue. So there is enough scope, even at this juncture, to raise the taxes. So I completely disagree with this argument that there's going to be a pushback. This pushback is very, very marginal, and we need decisive action from the states.
I'm going to leave it there. Amitabh Bahar, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. That's where we'll leave it here at the World Economic Forum in Davos. A pretty important topic as far as inequality is concerned. And let's see how far someone like Oxfam goes with this by the end of this Davos gathering, Viveka.
All right, that's the latest from Davos. Devan Murugan, thanks so much. Well.